we're logged in, and we're looking right at the reporting section. And a report I'd like to start with is the Today's Calls report. Today's calls, there's a bunch of quick links that you see here, and all of these quick links are for, it's either today's calls, today's topic extensions, and we've organized it like that so that if you need to just get in here and look at something quickly, you can. If you want to go look at different days, you can just simply click this call reports here, and that'll give you different filters so that you can kind of customize what you're really trying to do or what date ranges that you're looking at. So once we're in here, just to kind of the layout of the page here, at the top, I have calling. These are all filters. So if I wanted to filter information based on different things, so like let's say I wanted to look at a calling number, so maybe a particular extension making a call. Maybe I want to see all calls by extension 102. I can just quickly type this in, 102, and here I have a listing of every single phone call made by extension 102. And these are, you notice these are all outbound because this is the calling number is extension 102. So you can see that I've made 23 phone calls today. And there's a bunch of different pieces of information here. If I wanted to see which one of these calls was the longest, I can sort these based on the call time. So you can see that one of the calls that I was on today was 41 minutes, followed by the next one at 17 minutes. So you've got filters up here. You've got each one of the column headers that can be sorted. And then you also have a generic search over here. So if you were looking for a particular telephone number, maybe I want to find calls to a particular telephone number. I can say 716-961. And the other thing that you'll notice is this is a completely predictive search. So as I'm entering in information here, I can say 2123, and it's going to filter down to that last digit that I enter. So very quick and predictive search. So I walked through an example of how do I find calls to a particular telephone number. I walked through an example of how do I find all calls made by a particular extension and finding a complete list there. Maybe you want to find which calls went to voicemail. So I can just type in here in the search box, and that's how nice the search is. I can say which calls went to voice, and I don't even have to finish that search. And you can see here's every single call that we had today that went to voicemail. So we had 17 phone calls today that went to voicemail across all of Vaspian's phone calls. So whether that was a call, like I can see, here's a inbound call from this particular telephone number that happened at 8:36. They called the 855 Vaspian number. And if I want to see more information about this to understand what happened, I can simply click on this call info button over here. And what I see is that this call came in at 8:36, and it was an inbound call from this number to our 855 Vaspian number. And then we give you a visual breakdown of every single one of the call segments that happens. And with our service, one of the really nice things about the reporting that we do is that we do something that's called call segmentation. So we break it out to each of the individual components of what happened. So this call came in, and this call hit our main auto attendant. The person listened to the Vaspian main simple auto attendant for 14 seconds before making a selection. They typed in Gene's extension, and they waited 16 seconds for that call to ring through, and that call went to Gene's voicemail, and that person left a 52-second voicemail. So really nice breakdown of different calls. If I wanted to see things like, let's just look through another example here. I'll try to find an inbound call. Let's take a look at this one here. Here, I have a call that went to the main auto attendant. The person listened to the auto attendant. They probably dozed off for a minute because they listened to it for 35 seconds before making a selection. They chose the option for our support department. That call waited 8 seconds before extension 116 answered that call and talked for 20 minutes and 18 seconds. So really easy to find what you're looking for, which extensions were involved in a call, finding the all of the calls made by a particular extension. So I want to move on to the next report. So the next one is going to be the top extensions report. And this is the report that's going to give you a breakdown of every single extension and the number of calls that they've made. And so we're looking at this in blue right now. So if I look at Peggy, Peggy has been involved in 49 total calls. Alex has been involved in 41 calls. So if I went down to the bottom here, you can see that blue is total. So if I wanted to see, let's look at what is inbound here. And so if I scroll up to the top of this report, I can now see that, well, Peggy's a telemarketer, so that makes sense that she only has one inbound call, and she's got 49 outbound. Alex, who most of you guys know, is in customer service, and he's answered 33 phone calls of his total of 41. And so 41 calls is, so he made 8 outbound calls today. All of this information can be viewed both in the number of calls, but also in talk time. So you can see where Peggy was leading in terms of number of phone calls. I have been on the phone the longest so far today. I also still have the same, so if I wanted to see how much of this was outbound this time, I can see how much of this is outbound. If I want to download these, I can print these right from here. I can download them as a bunch of different image or PDF files. If I'm a data person, if you guys are data people and you want the actual data, we make it really easy. You can just simply copy this to your clipboard. It will copy all 22 rows. You can paste it into a spreadsheet. Or you can just download it as a spreadsheet and save it. So good stuff here. This is good to, if you're trying to look at how many people, who's on the phone the most, or how many people made the most phone calls. Maybe it's a sales department, maybe it's a customer service, something that you're looking at, or maybe you just want to look and see out of curiosity. Next 2 reports I'll go through briefly. Top numbers. Top numbers is going to show you a listing of every single one of your telephone numbers and what received the most phone calls. So our local 716 number received 54 numbers. 961-6161, that's our marketing number. So we've gotten 20 calls from marketing type activity. And maybe if I had different marketing campaigns going on, I could use different numbers and be able to track them this way. I've got 15 that went to the toll-free. Again, same thing. You get this in talk times, and you can also see the data here. Missed call. This is nice because everybody misses a call once in a while, and you want to see what they are. You could see and it breaks it down by hour, so you can see at 7 o'clock we missed a call, and then we missed apparently 3 calls around 1 o'clock. And missed calls are calls where somebody calls and they decide not to leave a message, they just hang up. And so if I want to view this, I can go in and I can see, okay, at 7:23 a.m., this 445-9544 called this number here. And then whatever this number is decided to call. I don't even know what this number is. They were awfully eager to get a hold of somebody because there's 3 calls right in a row at 152. So it gives you that breakdown of who these people are, and then if you need to call them back, you can call them back. Next report. is our busiest hour. This is one of my favorite reports because I think it provides a lot of really useful data. And you can see that what this does is it breaks down all of your calls based on every hour interval. So if I want to see how many inbound calls, maybe I need to know for staffing reasons, like what time I have to have somebody here, I can see that we got 2 calls this morning at 6 a.m. We got 8 calls between 7 and 8 a.m. And then you can see this go throughout the day. This is really useful when you look at it in terms of talk time. So if I look at this and I see that, and during 9 to 10, I had 2 hours and 21 minutes of talk time. So what that tells me is I need at least 3 bodies to be able to cover, to give proper phone coverage, to be able to answer all the calls that I have coming in. I'm looking at total talk time, but if I look at inbound, it tells me I had 1 hour, 57 minutes. So maybe I don't need 3. Maybe I only need the one person or a second person. I think everybody's probably been in an environment where people are complaining and saying, hey, we need an extra person and to answer the phones. I'm so busy. This gives you the data to be able to help prove that argument out. That, hey, we looked at this for last year and we looked at it for today, and you guys aren't any more busy than you were back then. Same thing is true. You get this in call data as well. And this can be viewed and moved into a spreadsheet in case you guys want to do any further manipulation of that data. Week's busiest day. This is another good one for staffing. For any medical type offices that are on the call, I'm sure their Mondays would be up to the roof, and then the week would start to taper off a little bit. But I can see these on inbound, I can see the outbound. So good reports for productivity and good reports for looking at staffing. I'm going to move on. One last thing I will show, by the way, is right within the application as well is a complete definition of every single report. So if you have questions and not sure what a particular report is showing you, take a look here. Download the manual that is in the handouts, or go to the Vaspian webpage under support, and you'll find that. So let's talk about display groups. Display groups, as we were talking about before, these are reporting groups that I can build. So in case I don't want to report on all extensions, maybe I only want to report on a department or a couple of people. So I can go in here into display groups, and the first thing it's going to do, I'm adding a new one. So if I wanted to go in, and let's say I wanted to create one for sales, I'm going to say sales, and I want to go in and I want to find the different salespeople. Gene's a salesperson. I can also, by the way, this is really nice, if I just type in what I'm looking for, I can say I'm looking for Greg. Okay, Greg's a salesperson, we'll add him. And I want to clear this out so that I get everybody back. Maybe Brian's a salesperson, Peggy's a salesperson, Dominique's a salesperson. So I can add all of those individuals in, and what that's going to do is it's going to look at those individuals and all of their extensions, and then when we pull a report about any one of those reports that we just pulled, we can pull it only for those people. So also I can add in groups, like hunt groups. So this might be like off of an auto attendant, I press 3 for sales, or I press 5 for sales. Maybe you have a sales number or a customer service number. You can go in and you can add each of this stuff granularly, and it's just going to provide more data. So if I save this now if I go back under my reporting section, I'm going to go into this call report section. This call reports is what's going to allow me to pull any one of those reports, and you can see here's all the different listings, and I can pull them based on a particular display group and over any particular period I want. So maybe I want to see all of the, we'll do a top extensions report for my sales department for, let's just look at last week, the 8th through the 10th we'll look at. And there's a checkbox here in case I want to include internal calls. I don't really care about internal calls for salespeople. It's just more of, are you making calls or not? And so now you can see, here's my report. I have a report of Peggy made 259 phone calls. Dominique made 78. Brian and Greg aren't really salespeople. So, and Gene, Gene's getting the whip. He apparently wasn't working too hard last week. And then by adding in that group, you saw that we had a whopping number 1 people calling in to ask about adding new telephone service. I guess that's not very good, but anyhow. So you could see that breakdown based on that display group that we just built. Now, display groups can also be used for, let's say you had an individual. So I've built one for myself. So if I go back here to this call report, and maybe I want to see like a productivity report. So let's look at our busiest time report. Let's look at it for, I have one that's just my extension. So Greg Schreiber's extension. In that display group, excuse me for 1 second. Sorry about that. So that display group has just me in it. So I want to pull a productivity report of what did Greg do today by hour. So let's look at this. This ought to be interesting, I'm sure. So let's look at just today. And we'll launch this guy. So you can see that I was the most productive at 7 a.m. this morning. Imagine that. I don't know if that's necessarily true without coffee, but and then between 8 and 9, I made 7 phone calls. Between 9 and 10, I made 2 phone calls. So you can get a really good view of what went on throughout the day by using display groups. And you can use them to get as granular as you'd like and looking at individual extensions, groups of extension, departments, telephone numbers, hunt groups. It really allows you to look at pretty much anything within the phone system. And when we start to get into live boards, which we're going to now, display groups have a big role. So under live boards, we have 3 of them. One of them is our queue monitor, which we're going to talk about next week, and this is going to give you real-time activity of how many people are calling into queue and how many people are waiting, and what the average hold time is, and all that kind of good stuff. We have our wall board, which is the most used one, and then we have this user panel, which is something that we're currently developing, and this one's kind of like an operator panel. So if you wanted to see who's on the phone and who's not on the phone, you can quickly look and see a list of all extensions and who's on the phone and who's not on the phone. And these things can be moved around to wherever you want. Oops. And so this is something that we have under development that we've added, but we've had a couple of people that like this because they can, instead of having to use the telephone to see who's on the phone and who's not on the phone, they just simply put this up on a monitor and they look over here and they can see these. If they wanted to expand one of these, they can see who's here, who's not here. This is Dominique. She's not on the phone, but she's here. Extension 104, they're not here today, and they're not on the phone. We see that 118 just took a call. Who's that? Oh, that was Kevin. So this is pretty useful for an operator panel. This is going to become very useful in the coming year because we're going to have a full operator panel where you'll be able to answer calls and transfer them using this platform here. So let's go back to, got all these different windows open here. I guess we can just navigate there. So let's go back to our live boards and let's look at the wall board. So the wall board here, the first thing it looks at, it says, hey, which display group do you want to look at? So we've got a bunch of these that are built. I can look at my telemarketers, and maybe I want to look at what my telemarketers have done in the last 4 hours. Do I care about internal calls? No, not necessarily with that. So I can click launch. It's going to pull up a couple of tiles that I can move around. Again, we've got a lot of customers that choose to use, they'll either just pull this up on a web page. I've got a lot of customers that they're call centers, or they have some facet of a call center where customer support, and they will put this up on a TV. And it's really easy to do. You can go to Best Buy, you buy a Chromecast, they're like 30 bucks. You plug it into the TV, and you can wirelessly cast this screen from a computer to that television. And this thing updates in real time. So if Dominique got on a call, you'd see her phone would go off hook. If Peggy got on a call, you'd see her phone would go off hook. I can sort this. So you can see that Peggy has made 49 phone calls. Dominique has made 37. If she started making, if Dominique made an additional 10 phone calls, or excuse me, 12 or 13 phone calls, she's going to jump to the top of this board, and you're going to be able to see who's been on the phone, who's made the most phone calls. So you can kind of drive competition in this. There's some additional stats up here. So like incoming. Well, incoming doesn't really matter for them because that's their telemarketers. But you can see that they've made 86 calls. 84 of those were answered. The average call length was 44 seconds. Their maximum call was 2 minutes and 52 seconds. That's not surprising for telemarketing. You can see that Dominique is on the phone right now. She's making a phone call. Let's look at one that has a little bit more meat to it. Let's look at our support department, because there's more members in there, and we have more things that we're looking for. So I'm going to pull this one based on 8 hours because it's 2:37 in the afternoon. And I'm going to pop this open, and I can move the screen around here. So this one looks very similar, just more members, but it also has this box. And this box is in there because the display group that I built, I chose to add our support department call group and that hunt group. So you can see that just a minute ago there was one person talking. That person just got off the phone. So there was one support call that was currently active. I can see here's all of the extensions. So Andy is on a call right now. Kevin Hurley just got on a phone call. So there's 2 of them that are currently on the phone. Now they must be outbound calls because they're not showing up here in the talking section. If somebody called in and I had a phone call ringing in to support that wasn't answered, you'd see it ringing in right here. And then as soon as somebody answered it, you'd see their handset go off hook, and you'd see that this would go to one person talking. Again, I can sort this. So like if I want to see who answered the most amount of phone calls today, Alex is leading the pack. Andy is slacking. I guess he's had about as much talk time as Alex has. Andy's a technician, so he's probably going to be on longer calls. Whereas Alex has been on 33 of these phone calls. So this is the wall board. And so the wall board's really what's going to give you your dashboard of information, and the reports are there to back it up. So let's say I saw somebody here where they made, maybe they made 100 phone calls, but their average talk time was 12 seconds. That would concern me, because what are they doing? Are they just trying to drive their stats up? Well, if that's the case, then what I would do is I would close out of this. I would go back into my call reporting here, and I would go into a listing for today's calls. I'd simply type in their extension, 102, we'll pick on me, and then I'd be able to find every single one of those calls, and I can just look at, why are these calls, are they calling the same number over and over again? What's going on here? And you can get that level of detail.